Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our lesson 1. And in this week's lesson, we are going to learn about how to manage an incalf heifer. We will start from an incalf heifer because at this stage, the dam is going to deliver for the first time. And we want to look at the entire process until we will finally get to a point where she has delivered, and then we pick it up from there and see how to manage the calf, then manage the growing animals until we get to finally a mature animal, but focusing at every stage and paying attention to the details that we must pay attention to in order for us to remain profitable and productive in our efforts of creating wealth through dairy farming. At this stage, when we are looking at a heifer that is incalf, our target is to ensure steady growth. A heifer that is incalf should never grow too fast nor too slow. It should grow steadily. And there are many reasons why a heifer that is incalf should never grow very fast nor very slow. It should be steady so that we can be able to prevent calving problems. Fast growth of heifers come with challenges, and then one main challenge is depositing fats around the pelvis. If you overcondition your heifer or overfeed the heifer when she is incalf, most likely she will deposit excess fats around the pelvis, and that will come with other challenges that we'll address shortly. Growing big fetus is another challenge that comes with overconditioning or overfeeding an incalf heifer. They will grow fetus that will be big because of feeding them high energy feeds. When you provide feeds that are very rich in energy, when a heifer is incalf, you will have the following challenges. One, difficult calving. Your cow will suffer from dystocia, or a condition where she will have a lot of difficulty calving. And remember, at this particular time, she's giving birth for the first time. And if she gets into difficulties while delivering, that will pose dangers to the mother as well as to the baby that's expected. Two, when you overcondition or overfeed or provide an incalf heifer with feeds that are very rich in energy, there is the risk of retained placenta. After giving birth, it will take too long for the placenta to be discharged. And that increases the stress and causes the animal to be exposed to a lot of things that include infections that you don't want to realize in your cow that is calving for the first time. And because of such difficulties, you can also expose your calves to high mortality. Chances are that when you overcondition or overfeed or give incalf heifers feeds that are very rich in energy, chances of those calves that are born dying prematurely chances are very high. Fourthly, because of the kind of environment that we'll have created and the challenges that will come as a result of that environment, most of those calves will have post-calving infections. And you as a farmer don't want to be exposed to that, because those too many challenges are eating into your investment and leading to more losses. And during this particular time, remember, the dam is still growing. That is the mother that is giving birth is still growing. And at that particular time, she is also growing a calf inside of her. That makes her position or her situation very delicate. And as a farmer, you need to pay attention to those details in order for you to make sure you are conditioning your animal for profitability, not for increased risks. Now, those are issues that come with overconditioning. But as a farmer, remember, again, if you allow your incalf heifer to grow too slow, you also cause problems. She will calf down very small. That is, if you don't supply sufficient feeds that have sufficient moderate energy, sufficient protein, sufficient minerals, sufficient trace elements, sufficient vitamins, and of course, yeast and microbes that will help the animal's body to be optimum at this particular stage, you will make your animal to grow very slowly or slower than what is recommended. And that will cause the animal to give birth to a tiny calf. And when the calf is tiny, you will also start off very badly with enough challenges that will come with that. What's more, the small calves that are born out of dams that were under-conditioned or were fed less than the nutritional requirements that they were supposed to have at that particular time, apart from the calves being tiny, they will be weaklings. So the calf is coming to life when she is very weak. She can die. She will most likely be prone to so many diseases, and she will therefore experience an element of stuntedness. And in these lessons that we are going to learn, we will help you farmers to realize that one of the biggest challenges that leads to poor productivity, that leads to inability to create sufficient wealth from livestock or dairy farming, is when you permit stuntedness. And calves that are born small and weak normally experience a lot of stuntedness. And that stuntedness means the calf's organs will never develop optimally, because at the time when the right nutrients were required to effect the right growth, those nutrients were either not available or they were insufficient. And therefore they never get to grow optimally. And when the organs fail to grow optimally, a time comes when they get time barred. And even if you wanted to reverse, you can never reverse that process, because once it has passed, it has passed. So in managing animals for profitability, ensure there is no stuntedness. But when you are managing a heifer that is incalf, make sure you are not under conditioning and supplying less than the required nutrients that compromise daily organ and body and skeletal development that is essential. And another thing that will come with growing too slow or growing slower than the expected or required rate is that dam, after calving, will never ever produce one sufficient colostrum for the already weak and small babies or calves. The colostrum itself will not be sufficient. And when you realize when your dam doesn't produce enough colostrum for the young calf that has been born, and the same is weakling and small, that already means that dam will also get less than sufficient antibodies, less than sufficient growth hormones, less than sufficient nutrients that would have helped her to start off well in life. And that therefore, again, exposes that weak, small calf to chances of it dying in under 6 months because of a very simple thing you either omitted or you failed to do and permitted slow growth of a heifer that was incalf. There will be, apart from poor production of colostrum that is required for the calf that has just gotten into life, there is another challenge where the dam, during her lactation period, should not produce sufficient milk both for the baby and for you as a farmer. So the losses are increased simply because you did not pay attention to ensuring steady growth. As I said, if growth is too fast, she deposits excess fat in the wrong places, especially inside the pelvis and the udder. Now, this is another very, very delicate thing. Farmers need to know this. When you are taking or managing a heifer that is incalf, one of the things you don't want is those fats being deposited in wrong places. And particularly at the pelvis and in the udder, because again, they tend to dent productivity of that animal throughout the animal's life because of a single mistake that you permitted in the first preparation of delivery of that calf. Avoid excess fat in the udder because that leads to what we call fatty udder syndrome. And a fatty udder syndrome is dangerous. And it is dangerous to the purpose for which you got into dairy farming. When heifers gain weight too fast from high energy diets, they lay fats inside the developing udder, as I've already said. This reduces the udder's functional secretory tissue permanently. Mark this. If you do it whether because of lack of knowledge or over ambition of wanting to have a very strong dam at the point of delivery, and you feed your incalf heifer with feeds that have excess energy, that exposes your dam negatively and will cause what we call fatty udder syndrome, which reduces the udder's functional secretory tissue permanently. Meaning you will have hampered or limited that calf's ability to produce milk during that first lactation, during the second, the third, and all the lactations that that particular animal would ever have because of that first mistake at that particular stage. So as a farmer, even as you invest in good genetics and you desire to make your cow productive, remember what you do during that first incalf stage is very critical, and it will dictate how much milk you will make in that calf's first lactation and subsequent lactations throughout the calf's life. That mistake results in low milk production in all future lactations. It results in poor milk let down because of the fatty udder syndrome, and it also exposes the animal to mastitis incidences. I want you to realize something here. Many farms struggle with mastitis, but they may fail to realize that one of the things that exposes their animals to mastitis could be just because of what they committed or omitted at the first heifer incalf stage of a dam's life. So if you do not want your animals to be exposed to this, ensure that a dam that is incalf, and it is incalf for the first time, permit moderate energy feeds and permit feeds that will allow steady growth, not too fast growth, nor very low, slow growth. What do you do as a farmer? Ask yourself, when you are a farmer, what are you managing in a heifer that is incalf? What are you managing? What must you permit and what must you avoid? Avoid fast growth. Avoid too slow growth. This is the main reason dairy farms avoid overfeeding pregnant heifers. So, take home here, do not overfeed a pregnant heifer. But again, do not underfeed a pregnant heifer. Feed a pregnant heifer, paying attention to the right body score. And we'll be looking at that shortly. Different animals have different mature weight averages. For a heifer that is incalf, target that heifer's delivery to reach 85 to 90% of her mature weight at calving. It should not exceed. Do not make your heifer to deliver the first time when the body weight is the weight she will finally attain at maturity. Cows take up to 32 months to be fully mature. At that particular time, on average, if they are Ashers, if they are Jerseys, if they are Frisians, what is the average body weight that is recommended? Aim at having 85 to 90% of that recommended weight for that particular category of animal. Do not exceed. You need to really know what we need to achieve in managing an incalf heifer. We aim at achieving a strong skeletal growth. You want the skeleton of your heifer to be well developed. You want strong bones. You want the right body structure, strong bones, proper frame size. The frame of the animal should be the right size with strong bones and correct body structure for high lifetime milk production. What am I saying? If the frame is smaller than it should, it is telling you that at one stage there will be, or there was, stuntedness. There was insufficient nutrients to develop the skeletal frame to optimum sizes. And that will mean the body will have muscles and organs that will match only the skeleton that it go to develop. And what you never achieved in skeletal development, you will never achieve it later because it was time barred. So do not make them too fat, but do not make them too small. Overfeeding accelerates fat deposits, not skeletal growth. What's more, overfeeding dents your pocket. Managing the growth rate, ensuring steady growth, is managing your resources. Reducing pilferage and eliminating losses or wastages that also eat into your cow's lifetime productivity. But there is one very critical, even very worrying thing about overconditioning heifers or making incalf heifers too fat. Because if you allow your incalf heifers to be too fat, after calving, those heifers would be prone to something called ketosis. Ketosis is a disease that puts your animal at very high risk. What is ketosis? Ketosis is when a cow is short of energy and starts burning her own body fat to make milk. Sometimes farmers have always made jokes and said, Fresians are fools. They can overproduce and they continue producing excess and getting thinner and thinner and thinner. That is a challenge that comes around because you overconditioned or you overfed or you oversupplied energy to the heifer when she was in calf. She gets to a point when a cow is short of that energy after delivery and starts burning her own body fats to make milk. It's a condition where the animal also instinct tells her that you really must do all you can to save your baby. So just the way a human mother would want to feed the baby first and forget about her own needs, psychologically it would appear a cow would overproduce and over-sacrifice for the baby to survive at the expense of her very own health. And that is a problem. Ketosis comes as a result of overconditioned, high-producing heifers. Another challenge that comes with overconditioning or overfeeding heifers is fatty liver disease. Ketosis, fatty liver disease, poor fertility, and slow return to heat are challenges that a farmer who does not pay attention to proper incalf heifer management will definitely get into. And they all are a threat to her dairy farming or to her efforts of creating wealth through dairy farming. Note, what exactly is ketosis first? We need to understand this. After calving, a cow needs a lot of energy to produce milk. After calving, a cow needs a lot of energy to produce milk. Milk has very high demand for energy. If feed energy is not sufficient, if a cow doesn't get that enough energy from the feed that she's feeding on, her body melts fat for fuel. The body reserves are melted. The energy, the fuel, the fats in the body melts to supply her what she needs to remain sustaining her life and producing for her baby. This produces ketones that make her weak and unwell. By the time your animal gets to that place when she is weak and unwell, the level of stress is highest. And at that particular time, all production, all productivity drops. So you lose the purpose for which you actually invested in that animal in the first place. During that particular time, when that animal is suffering from ketosis, when that animal is melting her body fats for fuel, when psychologically that animal is conditioned to overproduce by burning her own fats, a farmer will realize that that animal that is weak and unwell because of ketosis has poor appetite. As a farmer, how do you know your animal that just delivered is suffering from ketosis? You will notice poor appetite. She eats, but not eagerly. She's not too eager to eat. There's no vigor, there's no activity, there's no life. And yet she needs the food, but she's eating very weakly and without energy and without brightness. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to our lesson number 2 that is going to be conducted by the MolaPlus group live on Thursday next week. And during this time, when we are talking about how to manage an incalf heifer, we will guide you in details on how to ensure you maintain a steady growth for your incalf heifers and on how you should avoid overfeeding or overconditioning your incalf heifers. We will let you further understand that overfeeding your heifer can totally affect the profitability of that heifer throughout her productive life. And therefore, you may have to really pay attention because that eats into your profitability forever simply by making a simple mistake of overfeeding. Lastly, during next week's lesson, you will understand why overfeeding or underfeeding affects you very badly and how to avoid something that comes with under or overfeeding, a disease of ketosis and fatty liver disease. These have caused a lot of damage to farmers. Sometimes they do not know what they're dealing with, but it occurs and it affects their productivity in a very bad way. We want to ask you all to join us, tag your friends, and let as many of you come. Every question you will ask on Thursday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., we will address all those questions, we write them, and we will answer the questions during a repeat of that lesson that will be repeated on Tuesday the following week with all the answers to all the questions that you will have asked during the Thursday session. We welcome you and we will be very happy to walk with you this journey. Welcome and thank you so much. At MolaPlus, we value smallholder livestock and crop farmers, and we are committed to supporting Africa's livestock and crop farmers in wealth creation through innovation and effective resource utilization. Welcome.